Sam Pittman became the first SEC coach fired after Arkansas parted ways with Pittman on Sunday. And for listeners of this podcast, they weren't surprised. John and I told you in the preseason that Sam Pittman sat on the hottest seat in the SEC. That did come to fruition. And now the question becomes, who should Arkansas go get? Welcome into SEC Football Unfiltered, our podcast from the USA Today Network. I'm Blake Toppmeyer alongside John Adams. Much to discuss with the ongoing coaching search at Arkansas. We'll also address, is Alabama back after beating Georgia, or can Kirby Smart just not beat the Tide? And also, what's going on at LSU? Apparently, those questions about LSU's offense were relevant. And in fact, what happened at Florida a couple weeks ago was a canary in the coal mine that got exposed in LSU's loss last weekend at Ole Miss. But first, situation at Arkansas. John, I want to get to some candidates here in a moment, or some potential candidates. But to start, I'm wondering, what do you think? How attractive is the Arkansas job? I mean, this was once a premier program, but long ago in the days of the Southwest Conference. And then Arkansas packed a punch way back when with Bobby Petrino, but it's been a minute since Arkansas was really packing a stiff punch. But there is some money in Northwest Arkansas. There's Walmart money. There's chicken money. John Calipari can attest to the chicken money. So on the whole, how good is this Arkansas job?
Not that great. It does have some resources, and its history and tradition is kind of long ago. Going back to the old Southwest Conference was its pinnacle, really, when it had Frank Broyles, one of all-time great coaches in college football. But year in and year out, it hasn't been that way. Houston Nutt had some success there. Bobby Petrino had some success. But year in and year out, not that great. And when you look at all the other programs in the SEC and start thinking, which ones can Arkansas beat regularly? I mean, it's hard to find a lot of those schools. LSU, Texas A&M, Texas, just nearby rivals. Even Missouri looks in better shape right now with the Eli Drinkwitz. I think it's a tough job right now.
I agree with everything you've laid out there, John. One thing I would add, though, and I'm wondering what you think of this, because I agree with you. Said this is not a premier college football job. I don't think it's a terrible job. It's an SEC job. Most SEC jobs, with the right guy, I think you can be a playoff contender in a given year with the right hire. But you mentioned Missouri, and I look at what Ole Miss has done with Lane Kiffin, and I wonder, is it unreasonable for Arkansas fans to expect for its program to be what Ole Miss has been with Lane Kiffin, or to be what Missouri has been with Eli Drinkwitz? And that is a top 25 team that wins double-digit games. Is that an unreasonable expectation, or do you think that's fair?
Well, for one thing, Arkansas isn't in a heavily populated state. It's not a heavily populated state, but neither is Mississippi. And Ole Miss is competing with another SEC school, Mississippi State, for players. I just think if you can get a top of the line coach, that's possible. But I don't know if a top of the line coach would take this job. And if he did take it, would he stay? I think it would be a stepping stone. If you go there and you win 8 games and make some inroads with the program, a better job may be in the offering. So that it just makes it for a tough job. But if you get the right coach, and the NIL money is crucial now. I don't know what the situation is like. How much of Walmart's budget does it want to shell out to the Razorbacks? I don't know. Or would the chicken man rather pay Jon Calipari all his extra cash and not worry about football at Arkansas. Um, think about Kentucky, the situation at Kentucky. How good you Mark Stoops has had a couple of 10-win seasons there, but it remains a basketball school. And if you've got NIL money there in Kentucky, where do you want to spend it? You would rather invest it in basketball and football. I wonder if Arkansas now is in that same position. I know it's had more success traditionally than Kentucky, but it could get pretty good pretty fast in basketball with NIL money. Can't do it as fast in football.
I wonder, John, this is not, if you're an AD, this is never what you would tell your fans. But, when you're in a room alone and you have some quiet time to think to yourself, I wonder if the ideal outcome of this Arkansas coach would be finding a high floor coach that keeps, Arkansas above 500, that has them maybe flirting with the top 25, where with the right year, maybe the right transfer class, maybe some stars align, you get a good draw on the schedule, you're maybe hunting for one of those fringe playoff bids, hunting to be maybe the last team in once in a blue moon, but you avoid those disaster seasons. You got a high floor. Some would say, hey, that was Sam Pittman. Well, I think that was Sam Pittman when the Sam Pittman era was at its best. I don't think that was Sam Pittman in the last 12 months. I mean, the momentum was gone from Sam Pittman. I think Arkansas had to move on, but I do think, like I said, this is if you're Hunter Yurachek, the AD at Arkansas, this is not what you're saying, but based off what you said, like, it is true. Arkansas has a lot of mouths to feed, right? Like they want to be relevant. They want to be good. They want to be more than relevant. They want to be really good in basketball with John Calipari. Baseball matters at Arkansas. I mean, it is hard when you have that many programs with their hand out, even when you got a Chicken Man and Walmart, to be good at everything. But you want to at least be competitive in football. Arkansas wasn't competitive this past Saturday against Notre Dame.
No, and you bring up a good point. I think it depends on sometimes on how you win and lose. If you say you want a high floor, you don't want to have those disastrous 4-8 seasons. And 4-8 seasons are more possible with the SEC going to a 9-game conference schedule. You can't cherry pick guaranteed wins out there as easily. So that's another problem Arkansas faces. I think if Arkansas if you could go 6-6 to 8-4, you play in a bowl game and you're exciting. An offensive-minded program that can put up points and it lose the way Arkansas maybe did to Memphis and Ole Miss in a high-scoring game. I don't think you want to lose 20 to 10.
Or 53-13, whatever the heck the final score was to Notre Dame.
Yeah, and the thing about Notre Dame, too, is it was just, how could you go on after that? I mean, it was kind of, because it was 42-7 at the end of the first half, and Notre Dame looked like it had the greatest offense ever assembled, and everything worked. But it didn't help that Arkansas wasn't really answering early either. So I just think if you can play exciting football, pull off some upsets, and maybe get lucky. You do get lucky in this game sometimes. Look at Ole Miss. I mean, it's got a really good program. It's doing great. It's got a great coach in Lane Kiffin. But it also really got lucky getting Trinidad Chambliss, a quarterback from Ferris State. Ferris State.
Well, Lane Kiffin would tell you, John, he made his own luck by unearthing.
Yeah, well,
Trinidad
I'm sure he
Chambliss.
would, but nobody else even considered this guy.
And more to the point, I think Ole Miss got a great schedule draw. That's part of getting lucky too,
Sure.
right? You get the right draw in a particular season, and you take advantage of it.
Yes, when you get your chances, that's when you really got to hit the home run. Get a hanging curveball, hit it over the wall. And I think Tennessee has done that with Joey Aguilar, quarterback, a cast-off, a throwaway from UCLA. He played it in the Sun Belt for Appalachian State. Then when Nico left Tennessee for for UCLA said, "Well, we don't need some Sun Belt conference. We got a great 5-star Californian. Bring him on in." And then so Tennessee into spring ball. Where do you go for your quarterback now? Well, I guess you take the guy that UCLA didn't want, and now you're a playoff contender, and he's playing way better than Nico Iamaleava ever did at Tennessee. So those guys both joined the programs without going through spring ball.
Mm-hmm.
I just, like you said, you got to get lucky sometimes and then really capitalize on your good fortune. That to me would be the path to success for Arkansas. But to think you're going to slug it out, I'm just thinking of those old Southwest Conference rivals, A&M and Texas. Maybe you can match Missouri, but A&M and Texas, they got so much money, and they want to spend it on football.
Okay, so let's do this. I have 7 potential candidate names here that could appear on, say, a hot board for the Arkansas coaching vacancy. Just sort of rapid reaction here. Do you love it? Do you like it? Or no thanks on each of these names? Here we go. Gus Malzahn.
No thanks.
Dan Mullen.
Like it.
Tulane coach Jon Sumrall.
You had to identify him, didn't you? Like it.
SMU coach Rhett Lashley.
Love it.
Love it. Okay. How about Memphis coach Ryan Silverfield, who recently beat Arkansas?
No thanks.
Interim coach Bobby Petrino, who wants the job.
No thanks.
Here's one for you, John. Let the Grumors begin. Jon Gruden.
No, no thanks.
No thanks. No thanks. All right, so the one that got a love it from you, John, was Rhett Lashley. That was the only love it. Tell me why Rhett Lashley. I mean, he had SMU in the playoff last year. He's got a pretty good situation, I think, with SMU. We were looking at this from the Arkansas perspective. I don't know if Rhett Lashley is going to love Arkansas. Arkansas guy, Arkansas alum. I mean, you would think pulling on all the heartstrings there, but I don't know how heartstrings stack up with Dallas booster money that he can tap into at SMU, or how it stacks up with the path to a playoff that he has in the ACC. But what's the case for Rhett Lashley, other than being the in-state name, the Arkansas native?
Yeah, I don't really think in-state matters.
I don't either.
I just that is in-state coaches. That's like saying, does the coach fit the fan base? We don't care about that. That's overrated.
I think in-state matters even less than if he fits the fan base. That's almost like what's his shoe size, you know? You know, what's his fitted hat size? Who cares? Who cares what state he's from? He's got to be able to recruit. He's got to be able to build a staff, and the donors have to like him. You know, he could be from 7 states away, but if he speaks the donors' language, that's great. Or he could live right next door to the donors, and if they think that guy's a moron, well, it's not going to help.
Yeah, if he can talk fried chicken with the right booster
with the
there,
chicken man.
Yeah, yeah, he might be in business. But Lashley kind of fits what I was talking about. An offensive-minded guy, up-tempo, could play an exciting brand of football, probably recruit a pretty good quarterback. That's a factor. Or better yet, get a pretty good quarterback in the transfer portal. I want a guy that's keen on the transfer portal. If I'm in Arkansas, that's where I'm looking. Look what Lane Kiffin's done at Ole Miss through transfers. Look at Eli Drinkowitz. Probably hasn't been as prolific in the transfer portal as Kiffin. But my gosh, look at his running back. Look at
Yeah,
his
he's been pretty.
quarterback.
He hasn't been Kiffin, but he's been pretty good.
Yeah, and his receiver. I mean, he got 3 of the most productive transfers around. So, yeah, I want a guy that really values the portal and someone who can appeal to the boosters and you know, get into their pocketbooks. I think that's what matters. But again, with Ashley, you said it right at the top. He's got a really good situation at SMU. SMU has Texas. I guarantee you there's a few guys with oil derricks that kind of like SMU. So a lot
Yeah,
of
and he's
that
got the
going.
benefit of being in Texas without having to play Texas and Texas A&M. It's kind of the
Yeah.
best case scenario. You get that oil money, but you don't have to go up against the big oil money, right? You can stay away from those two and head on out for your ACC games. And Cal Berkeley and Stanford's thinking, what are we doing in this conference with the oil money in Texas?
You can look out there in your backyard and you got some of that oil, couple of oil derricks going, but that's not enough. Not well, no, when those Texas A&M, Texas Tech can see for miles and miles. So if I were Lashley's agent, I would say don't even think about the Arkansas job. All you need to know is you just went to the college football playoff at SMU.
Mm-hmm.
How long do you think it'll take you to get the college playoff at Arkansas?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe just enjoy the fruits of living in a state with no state income tax, cash your checks, win some games at SMU, and maybe make the playoff once every few years, and never think about Arkansas again. You can go home, your annual trip home, and be the one who got away. They just couldn't reel you in while you're winning games down at SMU. But a couple other guys, you didn't really like a lot of the names on my list, John. Frankly, I don't blame you. I mean, Gus Malzahn, really trotting that higher out there. I mean, look at what Gus Malzahn did at UCF. Wasn't great. I mean, Auburn might take Gus Malzahn back right now, but Arkansas, I don't know that that's like the bright new direction Arkansas needs there of Gus Malzahn. But I was interested because you're sort of the spokesman, John, for the guy with a few skeletons in his closet. You really take up for those guys sometimes. Bobby Petrino, though, and Jon Gruden got a couple skeletons laying around, but you said no thanks on both of them, and I happen to agree with you. I think I've got a column over at USA Today on Jon Gruden. Headline: Arkansas hiring Jon Gruden would be bold, daring, and dumb. I know Jon Gruden wants to get back into coaching. He wants to get into college coaching. He wants to be in the SEC. He can want all that. I just see scant evidence that Jon Gruden would be a good SEC football coach. I mean, his career pinnacle was 2 decades ago. Say nothing of the that's a whole other issue, Jon Gruden emails. But I mean, just purely in terms of the football, this is not someone who was operating at his professional peak anytime recently. I think he's very well suited to his role as an internet content creator for Barstool Sports. I don't know how that makes him appealing for the Arkansas football job, though. And then Bobby Petrino. I mean, again, I said Arkansas needs something bold and daring, maybe, but Bobby Petrino would be tired, grumpy, and aggrieved. So I agree with you. I don't
Well,
like either one of these two for this job, but I'm curious why you didn't take up for them as the champion of the Skeletons Club.
well, you call it Skeleton Club. I call it the Winners Club. I'm interested
Okay.
in hiring a guy that's going to win. If I were hiring coaches, I'd call Urban Meyer every week. Just say, "Hey, coach, you sure you don't want to come back?" I'm not interested in off the field stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's some issues with Gruden and with Petrino and a lot of other guys. But if I think you can win, I'm not trying to hire a saint here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to hire a winning coach. However, with Petrino, I think he's a terrific offensive coach. but I don't think he has the personality to endear himself to the fried chicken man. Now maybe he can turn it on for a little bit, but long term, I don't think he can do it. And he did win at Arkansas once before, and that certainly tempts me. But it's a different era now, and I'm not sure he can coach the way he did in his first stint at Arkansas. I don't know if you can coach players as hard as he did. There's nothing warm and fuzzy about Bobby Petrino. I do like him as an offensive coordinator. I think he's done a nice job at Arkansas as an offensive coordinator. And honestly, I wouldn't rule him out because a lot of people want to go back to their best memory.
Yeah.
When they make a decision like this, and they remember Bobby Petrino that year had him in the top 10, maybe fifth nationally in that one glorious season. The offense was piling up the points. It was exciting. Just happened to be have LSU and Alabama, the two best teams in the country, on his schedule. So some people will be attracted to that. I don't think his motorcycle business will factor into this. And off-field exploits that happened before and sabotaged his job there. But I think Arkansas will try to get somebody new that would excite the fan base more. I don't know if he excites the fan base now. It's been a while.
Yeah. John, for our YouTube viewers, I'm holding a ballpoint pen here, and I'm wondering, who do you think has more personality and charisma, Bobby Petrino or this ballpoint pen?
Oh, I think Bobby Petrino has more personality, but I don't know that it's good personality.
Yeah. I'm just trying to imagine that in the NIL and transfer portal era. I like the Bobby Petrino idea even less than I like the Jon Gruden idea, John. If you're gonna go with one of those two guys, just take a wild swing with Gruden. I do think the donors would like Gruden. Now, I don't know that he can be the CEO of a college operation. He hasn't coached in college football since 1991. You think just a few things have changed about college football since 1991? Ask Bill Belichick about that. But I do think Gruden has the charisma, the personality. I think he'd appeal to the donors. I have to think there's other guys who would also appeal to the donors, like a Rhett Lashley, who are also more qualified for the job of coaching college football in 2025. But if the choices are Petrino or Gruden, heck, I guess give me Gruden and swing for the fences and probably strike out, but take a big hack at it anyway.
Well, I mean, Gruden at his peak was a really good coach in the NFL, but he's far removed from his peak. I don't know how he would get along in today's era coaching college players. Things have changed. When he was an NFL coach, I remember covering him in a Super Bowl when he won one at Tampa Bay. I really like dealing with him. You know, you're in press conferences every day, all week. He's charismatic. He's a great quote. He says stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he's Chucky. I mean, he's funny. So
was Chucky funny? I thought he was killing people. I don't watch.
No, dark humor.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. He's a funny looking little dude, but he was dangerous.
Yeah. Admittedly, I don't watch movies like that. They keep me up at night, John.
I mean, I just remember. Yeah, I didn't watch a movie either, but I've seen excerpts, and I mean, if Chucky showed up at your doorstep, hey, come on in. I'll give you some chicken nuggets here. Or let's sit down and chat. No, you would say, oh my God, the end is near. Slam the door and race for your firearm. So, gosh, you would think of all the publicity you would get from hiring Jon Gruden.
Oh, you'd get Belichick-like headlines. My concern is you'd get North Carolina-like performance, right? I think it could truly just be the Belichick experience. You get all the limelight, all the headlines. Now, he'd have way more personality than Belichick, but you'd get all the headlines and none of the victories that you want. But one more, John, before we move on, because we got much more to discuss. But two other names you said you liked, didn't love, but liked. Dan Mullen, Tulane coach John Summerall. Dan Mullen is one that I might as well be Dan Mullen's agent, John, to make clear I'm not. But every time a job like this comes up, and what I mean by like this, like with the right coach could be a top 25 program, with the wrong coach could be 4-8. I think Dan Mullen could do that job because I've seen him do that job. Not at Arkansas, but I've seen him do it at Mississippi State. And you can't convince me it's any harder to win at Arkansas than it is at Mississippi State. And he's out there winning games at UNLV right now. I know it didn't end well for him at Florida, but I'm like you. I don't necessarily love Dan Mullen for Arkansas. I think Arkansas could do a lot worse than Dan Mullen. In fact, they have done a lot worse than Dan Mullen.
Well, I mean, yeah, Dan Mullen's agent should listen to our podcast. We've been in his corner from day one.
Yeah. Other than a few weeks, we jumped off the bandwagon at the end of his Florida tenure, but then we climbed back aboard.
Yeah, nothing is forever here on our podcast. It's one of our mantras. But you look at Dan Mullen, and he's a good coach. He's a good quarterback coach. He can develop a quarterback. I really think if Florida's NIL house had been in order when Dan Mullen was there, the story would be completely different. I really do. I know he didn't recruit great, but I think in recruiting now, it's more about the cash than the charisma. And you look at, to me, a good example is Josh Heupel at Tennessee. Nobody thought of Josh Heupel as a great recruiter, but they thought of him as a good coach, an offensive-minded coach. Tennessee is well endowed with NIL money. And so he's recruiting. He's working on a top 10 class for 2026. He's been around in the top 15, and he's a good coach. I think Dan Mullen could do that. And so
my concern with Mullen, though, John, if I can interject, I don't know if I see Mullen getting along with the Chicken Man. And to be clear, we don't know the Chicken Man, the chairman of Tyson Foods. But we're using him sort of as a generic big booster, right? But but Dan Mullen, I mean, I find him amusing sometimes, but he's kind of known as maybe having a little bit of a prickly personality at times. Do we see him being able to pass the hat? And because you mentioned it's as much about the cash as it is the charisma. But at a school where everybody's got their hand out, from John Calipari to the baseball program, you got to have a football coach who can connect with those donors and get the cash flowing in. As much as I like Dan Mullen sometimes for jobs like this, that would be my concern with Dan Mullen at Arkansas. Can he get the cash flow going?
Yeah, I want to continue using this Chicken Man analogy. It seems to be working, even though it really makes no sense whatsoever. We don't have to make sense on this podcast. Never have, never will. Yeah, I see Jon Gruden showing up. He's sitting on the front porch with Chicken Man. They're having a big plate of fried chicken and drinking a beer. Can Dan Mullen do that? He's a little too quirky for that, I think. I think he might critique the chicken. He might break down how the chicken was cooked a little too much for the Chicken Man.
I'm trying to envision Dan Mullen sitting on his front porch, sipping a cold one and eating fried chicken. I'm struggling to see it. As much as I like Mullen as a coach in other ways, and I think Arkansas could do far worse, it is hard to see him galvanizing the donor base at Arkansas.
He would be worried about some of that grease from the chicken spilling on his white sneakers.
All right, we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there, John.
One more thing on Dan Mullen.
Okay, one more closing thought on Dan Mullen.
Again, slipping into my agent's role, if I'm Dan Mullen's agent, I say, Dan, stay where you are. You haven't even lost a game at UNLV, have you? I don't think it's lost, has it? Did it lose a game? No. Okay. But I think maybe there's a lot of money in Vegas. It's
all going into the blackjack tables, though, isn't it, John?
Well, yeah, but I would tell Dan Mullins, stay where you are. Just stay where you are, Dan. You've been in the SEC. You coached at Florida, Mississippi State. Just say, yeah, a pretty good life here. So, yeah, I would advise him not to take the job.
All right, we'll have much more, I'm sure, in the weeks to come on the situation at Arkansas as the coaching search unfolds. Right now, Jon says Rhett Lashley at SMU ought to be a prime target for Arkansas. Jon, how about Alabama and Georgia? Kirby Smart keeps acting as if it's no big thing that he's losing to Alabama. Asked about his career 1-7 record against Alabama, Kirby said, "What's everybody else's record against Alabama?" And it's like, earth to Kirby. Like, that line might have played when Nick Saban was on the sideline. GOAT's been retired for 2 years now. You have permission to beat Alabama. Vanderbilt and Diego Pavia beat Alabama. Florida State crushed Alabama just a few weeks ago. Now, credit to Alabama. They look like a better team since then. Ty Simpson went from question mark to asset in a few weeks' time. But I'm wondering how all in you are on Alabama now, Jon. Is Bama back, or was this a case of flash in a pan and Kalen DeBoer can win the big games, but they don't have consistency?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little back on Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
I can't shake the memory of that Florida State game, though.
First impressions are big for you. I know that.
Yes, they are. Change them, and to change my mind, you just have to do more than have a really terrific half against Georgia, which Alabama did. And I think it showed how good of an offensive coach Kalen DeBoer is. He can put together, formulate a game plan offensively that will work, scripts that goes out there. Then Kirby adjusts at halftime, and Kirby is great at adjusting. And the second half was different. I thought going into that game that it meant so much more to Alabama than it did to Georgia. And Alabama, give it credit for responding, but I don't want to say it's back. Let's see how it does against Vanderbilt this week. Let's see how it does on down the stretch. But I'm curious about the Vanderbilt game because its offense is very similar to Florida State. It's got a running quarterback, and it worked last year against Alabama. Maybe this defense is better. I think the defense is better for Alabama, though it didn't look it against Florida State. But I'm not convinced. Here's a way to, if I had to pick, who do you trust more to make the playoff, Alabama or Georgia? I would take Georgia.
I probably would too. I think the schedule might factor into that a little bit. I think Georgia has a slightly more accommodating schedule than Alabama. Alabama's got 6 ranked teams left on the schedule. I'm kind of with you, Jon. Like, I thought this was a big win for Bama. Like, it needed this one more than Georgia did because Bama already had the one loss. I'm not trying to take anything away from the victory at all. It was a big win on the road in a venue where Georgia had won 33 straight home games. So big result, big moment. And yet I'm reminded of last year when, similar script. Alabama had a great first half against Georgia last year. We were ready to crown Kalen DeBoer, the next GOAT. We were ready to hand Jalen Milroe the Heisman. And then next week, Alabama goes up to Vanderbilt and gets beat. And then later in the season, they lose to 6-6 Oklahoma. And Kalen DeBoer acknowledged that this week. He said last year, Alabama couldn't handle success. That was true. It would get up for the big games. It beat Georgia. It crushed LSU. It won the Iron Bowl. But then in those other games, it was MIA. And that was the thing about Alabama under Nick Saban. He would always talk about the rat poison, and that rat poison thing kind of took on a life of its own, almost became a laugh line. But there was a lot of truth behind it, right? Like, Nick Saban was an expert at keeping his teams out of those quote unquote trap games. Now, I think the situation has changed since then. There's a lot more parity in college football. There is more traps laid. Vanderbilt didn't used to be a trap anymore. Now it is. But yeah, before I'm ready to say Bama is back, I need to see them string together some wins here, beat these meat and potatoes teams like Vanderbilt and Missouri. And I don't say that as a criticism. Meat and potatoes means you're a sturdy football team that you can't just count as an automatic win. These are good teams that are coming. Does Alabama have the consistency to win those games? I think this might just be like another season where Bama's on the tightrope week after week. And some games, like this Georgia result, it comes out on the right side of that, and other games it might slip off the tightrope.
Yeah, when you're talking about, you mentioned last year's Alabama-Georgia game in which Alabama, that started out as an absolute blowout. Alabama looked so great offensively. I'm glad we didn't do a podcast at halftime because I would have, since we are a tad prone to hyperbole, I would have probably said Kalen DeBoer is an upgrade over Nick Saban. Second half proved me wrong.
Yeah, second half of the season did too.
Yeah.
All right, so we're about halfway back in, it seems like, on Alabama. Maybe not all the way back in until we see what happens in these upcoming games against Vanderbilt and Missouri. How about a team you were all in on, John, in the preseason? That's LSU, a team you held steady with even after some offensive concerns the first few weeks. Brian Kelly was talking up that defense. Defense looked good, but then here in a big moment at Ole Miss, LSU's house of cards, I think, came tumbling down. And I mentioned canary in the coal mine. That's what that game was against Florida a couple weeks ago. And I mean, it was right there in the press conference. First question in the press conference was about maybe some of the things that weren't going great at LSU, and Brian Kelly would have nothing to do with that line of questioning in that moment. But it was an indicator of some persistent issues at LSU. The LSU offense just refuses to ignite. They have no run game. Now, Caden Durham, their top running back, was out with an injury in this game, but your program like LSU, you should have more than one running back. But I don't think they have an offensive line to run the ball. And Garrett Nussmeier, John, he either looks hurt, or if he's healthy, then he's not the quarterback we once thought he was. And Brian Kelly insists that he's healthy. Garrett Nussmeier, though, was asked multiple times after the game whether he's healthy, and he refused to answer those questions. That was the first question Nussmeier was asked after the game, said he wasn't talking about his health. I gave him a second opportunity later in the interview because I think it's important, because we know the speculation that's going to come if he did not clarify it. And Nussmeier passed on that second opportunity as well. He said he wasn't going to discuss his health. What's the level of panic or concern, at the very least, for LSU right now, do you
think? The concern should be tremendous. I thought LSU might have the most talented roster in college football this year. I didn't know that Garrett Nussmeier would throw the ball like his arms hurt. LSU has all these quality receivers, even better receivers than last year. I think Garrett Nussmeier has to be injured. I just don't think you would change. The talent level might change around you for the worse sometimes in different things, different type offense, your line's really bad. But he didn't have his line was better last year in pass blocking, but pass blocking isn't the issue as much as run blocking this year. LSU hadn't had good run blocking since Kelly's been there. Jaden Daniels, just nobody could tackle that guy. He just did it on his own. Nussmeier can't do that. So I think there's something wrong that's affecting his throwing, and we'll see what happens going forward. But right now, no, LSU has got more losses coming. And I go back to that first game that I thought was so pivotal, not for just LSU, but for Clemson too. I thought we'd be watching two college football playoff teams in that game. And might not have been watching a playoff team at all. I think LSU's got some tough games left, and it's got a tremendous defense. That's the oddity of this. The defense has come up short under Kelly in his previous seasons. This is a terrific defense. A lot of future NFL guys, not that that's the only measuring stick, but a lot of future NFL guys on this defense. It's a real aggressive, talented defense. but he can't carry the offense. You got to be able to score more. He said that afterward. You got to be able to score more than LSU scoring right now. So I wonder if LSU might turn to the backup quarterback. If there's something wrong with Nussmeier's arm, and you go with Michael Van Buren, the transfer from Mississippi State, who passed
can
for
run
over
it, right? More of a running
he
threat.
can run it, and also he passed for over 300 yards on Georgia last year. So it's not as though this guy hasn't experienced SEC defenses. He played in quite a few SEC games last year, started them as a freshman. So I think that might be the smart move at this point, unless Nussmeier is healthy again. But yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not talking up LSU as a championship contender anymore. I just wonder if it can stay in contention for a playoff. I will say this: I expect it to play in a bowl game.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, John. I'm not tapping the panic button at LSU. I'm pressing it pretty firmly. This was some confirmation that some of the worrying issues in the first few weeks of the season, you can't just chalk that up to a slow start for the offense anymore. We're a month into the season. These are now persistent problems. Garrett Nussmeier's not throwing the ball with the zip that we're used to seeing from him. There's something amiss at LSU. On the flip side of that, John, with Ole Miss now at number 4 in the U.S. LBM coaches poll. I thought Ole Miss was underrated in the preseason. Now, I think Ole Miss has proven itself as a legitimate playoff contender. I don't know if the team has as much talent as last year's team that blew it and didn't make the playoff, but you don't have to have as much talent. You just got to win the games that you're supposed to win from this point. And Ole Miss is in good shape. They only have 2 ranked opponents left on the schedule. That's Georgia and Oklahoma. Those 2 games will be tough. Take care of your business elsewhere, though. There's a nice path there to 10-2. Trinidad Chambliss, great story. Backup quarterback turned star. Division II transfer turned SEC and Ole Miss hero. But what did you see from Ole Miss? Do you think? Because I think this is an overcorrection to see Ole Miss at number 4 in the polls. That I thought they were underrated in the preseason. I think they're a little overrated now. I think they're a playoff contender. I'm not entirely sold they're the 4th best team in the nation, as big as this moment was. What's your take on Ole Miss?
I think of Ole Miss as a top 10 team and a very viable playoff contender. It doesn't have the defensive talent that it had last year.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty obvious. And it lost Jackson Dart at quarterback, but gosh, the way Trinidad Chambliss has played in the clutch, Jackson Dart kind of faltered at times in the clutch. As good as he was and as great a career as he had, man, I really like this Chambliss guy. He's been in tough games and he's come through for Ole Miss. This maybe it doesn't have as much overall talent as last year, but it might end up being a better team.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think this is a top 10 team. I think this is a playoff team. The rest of Ole Miss schedule, they have an open date this week. Then they have Washington State, Georgia, and Oklahoma on the road back to back. Those are 2 toughies. But even if they lose those 2, which they could get one of those 2, but after that, it's home against South Carolina, the Citadel, home against Florida, and then on the road in what looks like maybe a tougher than initially thought Egg Bowl at Mississippi State. That could be the in or out game for Ole Miss. Win the Egg Bowl could be a spot in the playoff. Lose the Egg Bowl, they're out. And this was a game against LSU, John, in which the only thing that could stop Ole Miss at times, for as good as LSU's defense had been earlier in the season, the only thing stopping Ole Miss at times was Ole Miss themselves. They had 2 turnovers, 1 on the 3-yard line that negated a scoring opportunity. They had 14 penalties. When they could get out of their own way, that offense looked good. I thought Lane Kiffin coached circles around Brian Kelly. I covered that game Saturday. Pretty electric environment in and around Oxford. That was a sleepy stadium when Lane Kiffin got there at times, and there's nothing sleepy about it on Saturday. So I'm with you. I think playoff team. Not sure about number 4 in the country. I do wonder though, John. All those Florida fans who have Lane Kiffin atop their wish list. Lane Kiffin might be a little too busy for a move this winter because he could be coaching college football playoff games.
He really could. And I really like Lane Kiffin as an offensive coach. His teams, when they're at their best, they can run and throw. They're balanced. And again, he has a dual threat quarterback. You brought up something I think is really significant. It applies not to just Ole Miss, but to everybody in the SEC. You're going to have ups and downs in this season in the conference. I don't see a super team. I see a lot of really good teams. And so you're going to lose. You're going to have bad days. And just don't let that affect you going forward. You mentioned the Oklahoma. What was the other game? Oklahoma and Georgia.
Yeah, back-to-back weeks on the road. Whew.
Yeah, that's a tough go. But you got to see big picture. You got to be able to bounce back from that. No matter how good or bad you do, you can't let that control your fate. You've got to keep playing and realize what you've done already. Ole Miss, it struck me in the LSU game. It was more clutch than LSU. I know it was playing at home, and that helps. But, Ole Miss was the favorite in that game. I thought LSU would be favored. I thought LSU might be a couple of points favorite, but it wasn't. Ole Miss was the favorite, and it played like the favorite.
Totally agree. If you're Lane Kiffin, John, I know up to this point he said Austin Simmons would be the starting quarterback if he was healthy. Simmons got hurt, I believe it was week 2. Trinidad Chambliss has come in, played very, very well since then. At this point, after this win against LSU and as well as Trinidad Chambliss played, he has to stay the starter now, right? I mean, open date this week, getting ready for Washington State. I think at this point, I mean, you tell Austin Simmons, hey, you can be our guy next year. We still love you. If this guy struggles, we're going right back to you. We got 2 great quarterbacks. We're coming out of a position of strength here, but we got to ride the hot hand. I mean, to me, you can't go away from Trinidad Chambliss after the way he played against LSU, and here LSU is at number 4 in the country.
Well, no, you can't go away from Trinidad Chambliss, but you also have to be very grateful that you have 2 quarterbacks that can play and that prove they can play in a limited amount of time for both, obviously. But they've got talent. How many teams, when you bring in a backup quarterback, can you see that kind of talent? It just doesn't happen that often in the transfer portal era. Look at Oklahoma. I wonder how that Oklahoma will fare without John Mateer, who was playing spectacularly when he went down with a broken hand. Michael Hawkins, kind of iffy how he will do. I wonder about his passing. But I think that's you talk about making the playoff. That's another big reason why I like Ole Miss's chances. If Trinidad Chambliss goes down with a sprained ankle and misses a game, you bring in Austin Simmons. Not many teams can do that.
Yeah. Ole Miss doesn't have a quarterback controversy. It has a quarterback abundance. It's overflowing at quarterback. Like you said, there's a lot of teams out there that would be envious of Lane Kiffin's positioning right now, where the hardest decision he has to make is between Austin Simmons and Trinidad Chambliss. That's a good problem to have. In fact, they don't call those problems. They call those blessings. All right, we'll get to our picks. We were not blessed with many wise thoughts in our picks against the spread last
That's shocking.
week. Yeah, that is shocking. I know. Absolutely shocking. John, you and I both went just 1-4 in our 5-pack.
Jeez, it was that bad?
It was that bad, and we are now both. This is familiar terrain for us. We are now both back below 500, back where we're comfortable, sitting there at a 400 and something clip on the winning percentage. I'm 12-13 for the season. You are 11-14, but you're only as good as your next bet. We got some winners lined up this week. So as we do it every week now, we have a 5-pack of picks. We have to pick 4 SEC games alongside a game of our choice. Can we pick any 4 SEC games that we want. Not a lot of games to choose from this weekend. A little bit of a light slate. I'll go first, John. Rattle through mine, and then we'll get to yours. I'm trying to protect my 1-game lead here in the quest to get back to 500. Here are my 5 picks starting in the SEC. I'm giving the 20.5 points, taking Georgia to cover at home against Kentucky. Kentucky is every bit as miserable as we thought they were going to be. They are the SEC's doormat. I think this is a get-right game for Georgia at home. I'll give the 20.5. I am taking Vanderbilt, pocketing those 10.5 points on the road at Alabama. We talked about Alabama. They were great in the big games last season. Georgia, LSU, Iron Bowl weren't so good in games like this. I think Alabama is going to win this one, but I'll take Vanderbilt and the 10.5 points. Vanderbilt's no joke. They're undefeated. Diego Pavia has never seen a team he doesn't think he can beat. Give me Vanderbilt and the 10.5. Oklahoma, I'll give the 45.5 points against Kent State, appearing in our 4-pack of picks. It was meant to be. I'll give the points. Oklahoma minus 45.5. I will take the points with Mississippi State on the road at Texas A&M. Love the hook there. 14.5 points going to Mississippi State off that that loss to Tennessee. Could have gone the other way. Now Mississippi State hits the road. I think Texas A&M will win. I think Mississippi State will cover. And then stepping outside the conference for my final pick, Iowa State, a ranked team going on the road to unranked Cincinnati, but Cincinnati, the home team, 1.5-point favorite. What's going on with this line? A little fishy? Well, I'm going to lean into the fishy line and take the home team, take Cincinnati at minus 1.5 going against the ranked opponent, Iowa State. There you have it. There's my 5-pack of picks. Probably go 1-4 again.
Well, I love your confidence. I just go back to 2024 season when you started out guns a-blazing.
Oh, yeah.
You were tearing it up, and then you quickly descended into mediocrity. I think we've proved that we don't handle success well.
Absolutely. Theme of this podcast.
Yeah, we just don't. But we're better off just no expectations. And somebody says, "How was their show today?" And they said, "It was okay."
I didn't expect much out of it, so it cleared the bar.
I tried something different. I'm really disappointed over my lock of the week.
Yeah, Nico got that backdoor cover.
God, I've got all these games, man, and I think I was so sure that Northwestern game against UCLA, giving the points to one of the maybe the worst Power 4 team in the country. I don't even like to use power and UCLA in the same sentence. So I missed on that. So I tried something different today. I'm at lunch, got 2 big fans sitting there at the bar. We're eating lunch. I said, write down your pick of the week for me. Sal wrote down Miami, giving the points against Florida State. Cody wrote down Texas Tech, giving the points. And so what did I write down? Texas Tech. So there I had confirmation. And since I have so little confidence at this point, to get assurance from a fellow human being in Cody, I said, okay, there you go. No doubt about it. The boys from Lubbock, West Texas all money will roll over Houston. I watched Houston play Oregon State last Friday night. That's pretty much what my life comes down to, watching Oregon State and Houston playing football on a Friday night. I thought Houston might be pretty good, but it was lucky to win that game, and Oregon State was 0-4.
So you're giving 11.5 points
yeah,
based on the advice of Cody. Was this the billionaire booster Cody Campbell who bought that roster at Texas Tech? Was this the one encouraging you?
Different Cody, but I will say this Cody does contribute to his program of choice. Not as much as Cody Campbell out in Lubbock, but he does contribute.
Good fans cheer, great fans buy. They invest. They got money in the roster. Cody's next level. All right, so that's your lock of the week, John. You're giving the 11.5. How about some SEC picks? Are you letting folks around you make those too? I like that you're giving up your picks and have like a guest picker that you serve as the mouthpiece for. What does Cody like inside the SEC this week, John? Let's hear it.
I didn't ask. I just no. I mean, I don't. Ultimately, I get credit or blame for whatever the picks are. So
yeah, he's like your offensive coordinator, but you've approved the play call. Yeah.
Sal was my defensive coordinator. Cody was my offensive coordinator. I took that input, and then I said, "Here's what we're going with, guys." Okay, SEC, Texas at Florida.
6.5 point spread. Texas favored on the road.
I'm so proud of Billy Napier for outlasting Sam Pittman. I thought that was
Can we give there's no cheering in the press box, but we're not in the press box here, John. We've picked on, I don't know if it's picked on, just aptly criticized Billy Napier.
Yeah.
When the moment was right. But do you think it would be appropriate for a little golf clap for Billy Napier outlasting Sam Pittman? We're not in a press box. Is cheering allowed?
Way to go, Billy. You outlasted Sam Pittman this season. Okay.
Got that out of the way.
And so Texas, yeah, I'll give the points. I mean, I just could say, I could almost see Florida players at some point just said, and we don't really want to go out there today. Can we?
But they haven't done that though. That's the thing about Florida. They're still playing hard. They're just
I know, but there comes a breaking point. I see a lot of spy movies where a guy's being tortured, and 24 was my 24 was my favorite.
Where are we going with this?
Well, we brought in Chucky from a horror movie. Jack Bauer, the Kiefer Sutherland character on 24. I mean, he's got scars all over his body. He got tortured by Chinese and Russian agents. Everybody tortured him. Cartel tortured him. Everybody, his own people. But, I don't even know what I'm talking about.
I'm sure there was a point in there somewhere. The point is you're giving the points and taking Texas 6.5. How about your next?
No, I'm saying no. It's a breaking point. It's a breaking point.
Okay.
Everybody except Jack Bauer finally breaks, and I think Florida, the losses are piling up. It's going to break.
Okay? Fair enough.
All right. I apologize for all
your next
that.
SEC pick.
Next SEC pick. I agree with you. Vanderbilt runs very similar offense to what Florida State does. And I just think I believe in Vanderbilt. And I've never said that before, ever. In the past, I would say, I laugh at Vanderbilt. Now I believe in Vanderbilt and Diego Pavia, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. So I'll take the points.
John, I can confirm that you've literally laughed. Many moons ago, I forget what year it was, Vanderbilt had a hot start to the season. I think they were hosting Alabama, right? And Vanderbilt fans were all excited. And in a picks column, you had the score listed as some sort of Alabama blowout. You caught some flack from that, from Vanderbilt's 7 fans that they had at the time. And then I was in a press box with you, and you said aloud, anybody know the Vanderbilt-Alabama score? And I think at that point it was like 172-1. And you just started laughing.
And you know what I did to follow through with that? One of the emails I got from a Vanderbilt fan saying I was a senile old man and shouldn't even have a column. He made the mistake of leaving his phone number. So I called him and left a message on his phone.
Asking if he saw the score?
Yeah, I said, yeah. I reminded him of how things were going for his Commodores. So
but we're all in now. We're both picking Vanderbilt. We're taking those points. That's a dangerous terrain when you and I align behind a pick.
Yeah.
Okay, you got 2 more SEC picks. What else you got for me?
Okay, I've got I agree with you on Georgia versus Kentucky. Georgia sometimes doesn't play well against Kentucky, but coming back from the Alabama game, playing at home, really something to keep a team focused. Playoffs certainly very much in sight. And also, Kentucky is just so awful. Kentucky's the worst team in the SEC. I think it's safe to say that now, don't you? Do you disagree with that?
Oh, yeah. It is much easier to identify who the worst team is in this conference than who the
Yes.
best team is in this conference. I got a pretty good read on who the worst team is. They'll be in Athens, Georgia on Saturday.
So I agree with you on that pick. And then one more, Oklahoma against Kid State. Kid
I,
State. I'm
you
an
can't let
honorary.
that one slide, right, John? I
No,
thought if you
I
don't
have an
pick that
honorary
game,
degree. I have
yeah,
an honorary degree from Kid State. I love that program. And even though it's let me down a couple of times and beat the spread this year, I will gladly give those points to the Sooner Schooner and just watch it roll over. I could just see it coming out before the game's over and just running through the Kent State defense. That Schooner just bodies strewn all over the field.
yeah, sort of like the fans at Virginia before the game's even over, just steamrolling
Yeah.
Squirrel White, embedding him right into the
Well,
turf. All right,
okay.
good luck on your picks this week. Hopefully, we do better than last week. Good luck to Arkansas on its coaching search. Thanks for listening to this edition of SEC Football Unfiltered.